Awesome. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this week's webinar. This one is going to be about SEO, entitling how to get chose, because you probably got a site or you're working on a site and you want people to see it. You want to get as much traffic to it as possible. So let's see. Let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, cool. So yeah, the title of this is How to Get Chose, and I am Jason Ladd. I'm a senior software engineer at Blavity. I basically handle everything from like structuring out the new site to adding new features, fixing bugs, all that kind of stuff. So one thing that I kind of frequently have to do at jobs concerning web development is how to get the site found. So basically we're going to talk about that today in this webinar. How do you get your site to pop up in the search engine? That's like the $1,000,000 question. So a few talking points that I want to cover. So first of all, what exactly is a search engine? I mean, I know all of us know what search engines are. We use them daily, or we use that one daily. You know what I'm talking about. But we're going to go into a little bit more detail and to actually what is a search engine and how it works, and then that'll kind of explain some of the tactics that we can use to optimize our chances of coming up in the search engine. We're also going to talk about why search engines matter, because you may be saying like, well, I can share stuff on social media and you may get the majority of your traffic from there already. So you might not see why there is any value in focusing mainly on search engine optimization. So then we're going to talk about what is SEO and go into detail about what actually is and what it isn't. And I can tell you right now, SEO is not a button that you press. It's not a checkbox that you've done SEO and you're good to go. It's more of a suite of techniques and strategies that you use. So we're going to go into that. Major keys, I want to talk about keywords, because that's a really big point in search engine optimization, and I'll explain why. We're going to talk about, is your site mobile ready? And that's just because, I mean, ask yourself this, like, do you use your cell phone mostly to search for stuff or to look for content, or do you sit down on a desktop or a laptop? As a lot of you are creators, I'm sure you do use desktops and laptops a lot, but just think of how much you use your mobile device and think of how much your potential visitors are using mobile devices. So that's a big thing. Semantic markup, I know we're getting into kind of like some geeky language there. Essentially, that is about structuring your HTML the best way you possibly can. If you're writing your own HTML, you're definitely going to want to keep these points in mind. We'll just kind of like brush over those pretty quick. Backlinks is really big. We're going to talk about those, and Webmaster Tools, we're going to talk about why you want to use those. Essentially because you're going to be doing a lot of different techniques and changes to your website to try to optimize it for SEO, and you want to know if it's actually working. Some things you do may actually hurt your chances of popping up in the search engine, so you want to be able to like keep a finger on the pulse of your site to know what's going on. And last, we'll kind of just go over the future of search on the web and where things are headed to, because the web is always changing, so you can't ever get too comfortable with the way things are at that one point in time. So what exactly is a search engine? So a search engine is essentially, it's just a robot that lives inside the internet. Technically speaking, it lives on the servers of whatever company is offering the search. Like in the case of Google search, the robot kind of lives in their servers. All that means is this robot is really just a program. It doesn't have a body. It doesn't have arms and legs and it doesn't need to. All it needs to do is search the web all day and essentially just click from link to link in web pages, and to try to rank each one based on how relevant it is to a certain like topic or a certain set of keywords. So the robot is basically trying to do the dirty work for us, because imagine if there was no real search. and you just had to like crawl through the web to find what you want. It would take ages. So that's why they developed this robot. It does this all day, every day. Whenever you type in a search on a search engine, for example, on Google, you're not actually running a search. You're basically telling it to return what it's already searched for those keywords, which is why it runs so fast. You know, if you ever wonder why I can search the entire web in like 0.02 seconds or whatever, because it really was just pulling back what it already had indexed for those keywords. And we'll talk about those again in a second. So this bot is basically just designed to kind of mimic a human being reading the website and to see if it's relevant or not to a certain topic. So like, for example, if you're searching for, a YouTube video on how to change a tire, most likely you're going to want to click on the one that says how to change a tire and then offers step-by-step instructions. So that's what the robot is actually looking for. So basically what we want to do, and we'll get to that in the next slide, after this one, but basically what we want to do is optimize everything so that robot can find our stuff as easy as possible. So now let's talk about why do search engines even matter. Again, with the prevalence of social media now, that's where the majority of your traffic may be coming from, because people, share stuff on social media and they click those links. However, you gotta you got to realize that all traffic is not really created equal. And what I mean by that is, depending on the source of the internet, on where someone comes from and visits your site, their behavior could be a lot different. And usually the thing about social media traffic is, think about the behavior the same way that you do when you see something on social media. Maybe you're scrolling, you see something that catches your eye, you click on it. Maybe it's taking too long to load. It's nothing you were looking for anyway. You just click on out of it. That's considered a bounce. That looks bad on your website performance and everything. So just say if it didn't take too long to load, and best case scenario, the site loads up. You've got what you clicked in for. Then you click the back button on your phone, and you're out of there. Now that's still a bounce because, and we'll talk about bounce rates and all that stuff in a minute. That's more to the analytics side of things. But the main point is that when someone comes from a search engine, they are more likely, I think this is what they call like a hot lead in terms of sales, that they are someone who is actively searching for the thing that you have to offer, which is a lot different than someone who just kind of runs across it. Think about like if you're physically out searching for a store, and then you see the one that you want, then you're probably going to be spending some time in there, as opposed to like, passing by something and see it in the window, which is a little bit more like clicking something that's been shared. And I skipped over the first topic because I really want to drive home that people are already searching for what you have to offer. That's the beautiful part about search engines, is that you don't need to necessarily do anything to bring people to you. You just need to be in the way of that traffic. So I guess a good analogy is like, if you need some water, there's a stream going by, then you need to be dipping your bucket in the stream, because that's where all the traffic is. So we're going to talk about how you can do that, basically. And last but not least, for the most part, once you've set up SEO, it's something that gives you exponential returns without you having to like constantly do something. Like, for example, with social media marketing, you're constantly having to schedule posts, make sure they go out the right time, do A/B and test, see what's hidden and what's not. But with search engines, once you've got a good thing going, you can continue to optimize it. That's one thing about SEO, is it's never really done per se. It can always be better, and you can always make a change that could hurt it, and things not turn out for the best. But the vast majority of the techniques that you're going to use are going to be helpful as long as you stay within the guidelines. And we'll talk about some of the points that you really want to adhere to not get penalized by Google, because there are some like tricky things that people try to do that get them penalized in the search results, and you definitely want to stay away from that. So SEO, what does it even mean? So we talked about what SEO is not. It's not a button. It's not just one thing that you do. It's like it's this whole suite of techniques and things that you have to do. So like we talked about, Google, and for all intents and purposes, we're just going to say Google and also Bing bot, because people still use Bing to search the web, and you don't want to count those people out just because you only use Google and that's what you're used to. Now there are even other search engines out there on the web, tons of them. And the funny thing is at the point when Google came onto the scene, which I think was like '98, there were so many search engines out that people thought they were crazy for making one, but theirs was just better than everyone else's, and they kind of, although those just kind of fell off. So anyway, little fact about Google. But so basically, we're trying to make our content as easy for this robot to read as possible, because this robot is what's going to go fetch a page and bring it back to the user based on the terms that they've entered into the box. So what we want to do in order to make it easier for this robot to read and understand is we want to use what's called semantic markup. I'll get into that in a second. But basically, mostly what we want to do, here's the overall goal, is that we want to convince the robot that our site is as relevant to a certain set of keywords as possible. So what does that mean? It means that, let's say, for example, if you are a 3D sculptor or something like that. So, you may use software like 3D Max or Cinema 4D, Blender, or whatever like that. Then you've got certain words that people who are looking for that type of thing are going to be looking to. They might be looking for words like 3D printing or something like that that's associated with it. So what you want to do is make sure that you have those keywords that people are going to be searching for inside of your content of your site, because you can make a site, like, for example, you can make a site about bricklaying, just making up some random stuff, and you can use a bunch of different euphemisms for different words and be really creative, and that's cool. But if you don't use the words that people are searching for, which are going to be words like brick, mortar, work, buildings, architecture, those are the type of words that are going to draw people in. Now with that, and we're going to talk about keywords in detail in a second, but you want to be careful choosing which keywords that you use, because obviously some are better than others, and we'll talk about why and how you do that by doing keyword research. So major keys, let's talk about keywords right now. First of all, you may be getting smart. You may be saying like, well, man, if Googlebot's just looking for all these keywords, then like, why don't I just go like down the footer of my site and just stuff a bunch of keywords in there, for all the things that it's related to, and just get it done. That's called keyword stuffing, and basically that's been played out since the 90s. It's not going to work anymore. And as a matter of fact, this is one of the things that will get your site penalized, because Google is trying to like weed out all of the sites that are trying to game the system as much as possible. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't still ways to game the system, and that is kind of more of a field called like I guess it's more into like guerrilla marketing in a web sense or something like that, but that's another webinar for another day. So basically, back to this part, you don't want to stuff keywords in there. You want to use keywords in a really natural way, because the Google bot or whichever search bot is kind of trained to look for things that are natural. So it's really easy to tell it to like throw a red flag if it finds a big paragraph with just a bunch of terms. Even worse, what people have done, and I want to say, if I'm not wrong, Soulja Boy was like genius for pulling this off on YouTube, which probably didn't have this implemented, is that you could theoretically find out what is popular, what are people searching for right now, and then stuff those keywords into your website. Just say, for example, if like Cardi B's in the news, she just did something, but your site's about bricklaying, and you go stuff a bunch of like keywords related to her in there, and your site pops up. It will not work now. It probably won't. It was a time where it would work, but now that's the type of stuff that you get penalized for, because it's dishonest. So you want to stay away from stuff like that. So only use keywords in a natural sense, but make sure that you use them as much as possible and throughout your text. So with keywords, now here's the thing about keywords, is that you have what you call like short keywords and then long tail keywords. The thing is this, you want to try to stay away from short keywords. And my example here is like houses. Just again, going back to the bricklaying, thing. If you're talking about houses, like that term is going to be so saturated with so many other larger, what they call domain authorities, which are basically sites that have been around for a long time, have a lot of like backlinks, and it's going to be hard to kind of like knock them off the pedestal in a sense. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you want to definitely research the keywords before you try to tailor your content. And that's another thing I want to kind of briefly talk about, is that sometimes you need to tailor your content to the keywords that people are searching for. Then you can get them to your site and then link them to some other content that might not be as relevant to what they were looking for, but it's still relevant in the realm of your site. But back to keywords. So what you want to do is use what are called long tail keywords, because long tail keywords usually have less competition. So here's my example. It's something I just pulled out of there. But if you do a Google search for houses, it's so ambiguous, and you're probably going to get something called house.com that's been up since 1995, and you're going to have a hard time bumping them out. But if your content is about, or just say, for example, you have a blog and you make a blog post about like tiny houses made from shipping containers, that's the type of thing that when people are searching for, it will be more specific to, that phrase will be a lot more specific to what that person is looking for. So if someone's interested in tiny houses or upcycling or houses made out of shipping containers or whatever they're looking for, they're a lot more likely to find your site coming up for these keywords. And on top of that, when they find your site, they're like, oh, this is perfect. I was looking for something on a tiny house, or I was looking for something on shipping containers. But no one is really just on the web looking for a generic house website that they would click your thing, and it being unrelated, that they would feel like they landed in the right spot. Most likely they would land on your thing and be like, oh, okay, this isn't really what I was looking for. Now, I put another one in here, floating purple housing pod designs. Now, that's an example of using something that might be a little bit too specific, because no one may be searching for that. So again, if no one's searching for it, that stream is just not there for you to, jump in and get some water from. So try to stick to something that is very specific to the content that is produced on your website, and that's long enough that it doesn't have too much competition. So another thing is, in terms of keywords, is to make sure that you have plenty of them in your site. Again, like I said, you don't want to just stuff them all on a list somewhere, but it's important to have, even though this sounds really elementary and basic, it's kind of true. It's important to have a lot of text on your site or somewhere on the site. And that's just because the Google bots are not really that good at looking at images and telling what they are yet. They're actually working on some AI stuff that can like look at something and say, oh, this is a picture of a man sitting down, or this is a picture of a dog jumping, or whatever. But we're not quite there yet. So right now you have to use just the text, the words. And so we're going to talk about, again, the semantic markup and where that text needs to be. But just in general, you want to have these keywords in your content. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for the bot to find it. Okay, so the next thing is making your site responsive. We kind of briefly talked about this before. The thing here is just that now and probably into the future, it's going to be more and more that a lot of traffic is just coming from mobile phones because of the way people's lifestyles are. So you definitely want to make sure that your site is mobilely responsive. That's really just a fancy word to just say that it collapses down to a mobile size or stretches out, to a desktop size when necessary. And again, that's just because so much of your traffic is going to be coming from search engines that are on the mobile devices, that you definitely want to be where the people are looking for. And almost more important than just being there, you want to make sure that people don't get frustrated with your content and leave quickly. Like I said before, like they're waiting on your site to load up and, it's just not loading up, or it loads up and they've got to like do all this pinching and dragging and zooming to, be able to see the content. They'll get frustrated and leave like 10 times out of 10. So you definitely want to make it as easy for people to navigate as possible. Now, I know we have not talked about SEO from the standpoint of a specific platform. It really does not matter, but I know WordPress is probably the most popular, and you're probably using WordPress. So again, unless you're coding your own stuff or you're getting a web designer to do it for you from scratch, the easiest thing to do is just make sure that you get a WordPress theme that is responsive, and you don't have to do anything. All you got to do is just pick it out, and you're good to go. So semantic markup. So let's get a little technical here for a second. So if you're writing your own HTML, if you like to roll your own, the thing you need to remember is that you have to mark up the document so that the robot can understand everything properly. So a little bit of background information without going into too much detail. HTML, which means hypertext markup language, is essentially a way to mark up text documents so that they can be easily categorized on the web. What that means is this. If I were to type up a document using Microsoft Word and hand it to you, and there's like a large, bold font word at the top of the page, then you, as a human being, you know that this is the title of the page. Most likely it's the title. And then there will be like section headings that might be a little bit smaller, but still bold or something like that. So as a human being, you're looking at the document and you're just understanding, okay, where's the heading? Where's the title? Where's the body text? Where's the footer? It's really hard for a robot to just understand that. So that's the whole point of HTML, is just to wrap those specific pieces of text in a certain tag so that the computer knows without a doubt what it is. So again, if you're writing your own HTML, that means that essentially you want to make sure that you have proper title tags on your page, because the title is what's going to actually show up in the search when someone does a Google search. That's the first thing. The second thing they're going to see under that is the meta description. It's kind of widely agreed upon now that search engines don't really care about the meta description, again, because that was one of the things that people kind of abused it so much by like throwing a bunch of unrelevant, relevant stuff in there and trying to boost their ratings. But it's still very important to put this in there now, because that being what shows up. And let's do a little quick example. We'll go to Google and let's search houses, like we said before. So here is the title. This is what you're going to see for the title, and this is what you'll see for the meta description. So although the robot might not categorize this, a human being is going to have all these choices to choose from, and they're probably going to look at this stuff to choose which. Now, I know a lot of times we just say, oh, let's just pick the first one, but sometimes you may want to say, okay, am I interested in real estate or whatever? And here's another example of something else that I talked about earlier, was about using those keywords. You can see where every time it has the word houses, like from my search, it shows up in bold. So let's see, houses made from, shipping containers. Let's see. And then you can see here again how, as a searcher, I'm probably going to be most interested in things that say like houses made from shipping containers. Either or in all places is best. It's somewhere in the title, in the URL of the page, you see it's there, and somewhere in the meta description of the page. And don't know what this site is about, but let's just check on it. And going to here, you can see how it utilizes things like the header tags, and it's got the text like somewhere in the page. This is my first time ever visiting this site, and it's got the text here. And this will probably be the difference between someone that may be equally as cool but just might not have the right terms and everything that it needs to come up. So let's see, getting back to this. So yeah, again, semantic markup. If you're not an HTML person, you don't need to worry about this too much because whatever like theme, like if you use a WordPress theme, usually if you get a good one, they're going to think about all these things beforehand. But sometimes, and most of the time, you'll need to input this information. Sometimes it'll kind of pick the title for you, but more often than not, that'll be like on your site customization page or something like that, where you'll just type this stuff into a box. So again, if you're using image tags, really quickly on that, you want to use the alt attribute. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it too much. Just throw a Google search in there for like SEO and images and alt tags. It'll tell you all the specifics. But essentially, the case is, like we said before, robots can't really see the pictures and know what they're about. So the alt attribute is just a little text tag on a HTML image tag that tells it exactly what the image is, which is also important for people who may be like seeing impaired and they're searching the web, and if they're using screen readers, the screen reader also is a robot and it needs to know what that's a picture of. It can't really just guess. So links are pretty much the same way. Using the title attributes on links just lets it know what you're talking about. So now let's talk about backlinks. This in terms could be looked at as like more of a marketing thing, but I think it really is kind of central to SEO. And honestly, I think it's the biggest and most important aspect of all the things that we're probably going to talk about. So essentially, you may be saying, what's a backlink? Well, backlinks, the reason why I said I've got get past the ball is think about a scenario like a basketball game, and let's just say like we live in some random universe where it's a good thing to be a ball hog. So if you're sitting there and you're watching the game and you're seeing like this one person keeps getting past the ball all the time, then your view as someone watching it is like, wow, this person must be pretty important to the game because a lot of people pass them the ball. So the internet is exactly like that, in the terms that when you get a link from a website that is popular, that does a lot for your website. So, for example, if you've got sites which are called domain authorities, and a domain authority is basically just a site. It's in technical terms, they say it ranks like 99 to 100 on the domain authority scale. Then it will pop up in like the first one or two spaces on a Google search, just like that site that we just searched for on the shipping containers. So one of the most powerful things that you can do for your site's ranking is to get links from these. That just literally means that a link needs to be on that site and that it needs to point to your website. So you may be saying like, well, how do I do that? Well, there are tons of ways you can do that. One of the most popular ways of doing that is guest posting on other people's blogs. So just say, like, for example, there's a blog that you like. Can't think of any right now, but I know there's some out there, and you write on those blogs. Well, if they're getting a lot of links, they're getting a lot of traffic and they have a higher domain authority than you do, it's really good to get links from them because it tells the Google bot that like, hey, your site is getting past the ball, so it must be a somebody, basically. Even though that kind of sucks, it's how it works. So the thing about that though is with social media sites, you may be thinking, as did I the first time, like, wow, I'll just go like plaster my link all over social media and I'll get link backs from there. Well, that doesn't really work the same way because they have some code in those links that basically tell the robot not to follow those, because it would kind of get confused. Like, for example, with Twitter, people are posting links like all day. Like it doesn't really work in real time. It kind of like crawls the web, indexes it, and comes back and crawls it again later, which is why you may have seen sometimes, like, if your site does show up in Google search engine and you go do some change to it and it still looks, the result still pops up with the old text or something, that's because it takes time for it to refresh the information. So anyway, again, you can kind of just research into backlinks and see whatever techniques and strategies that you can use to get those, but one of the most prominent is guest posting on someone else's blog. So again, you can just like search for the topic that you're interested in and search with something like write for us or contribute or something like that, and that's where you'll find the opportunity to do that. So now I want to talk about Webmaster Tools real quick. So the reason why you need these is because you need to be able to measure metrics. Otherwise, you're just, kind of spinning your wheels because you won't know if what you're doing is actually beneficial or not. So one of the most helpful is obviously if you're using Google Search Console. If you're using Google as your main point of reference, then you're going to want to use the Google Search Console. So that basically just has a lot of information about your sites, like specifics, like how many pages has the robot indexed, and it has it run into any errors while it was crawling your site. That's another thing. Sometimes it can crawl your site and find 404 errors and things like that that could hurt it in the search engine. So it's really essential to have access to this so you can watch what effects that your changes have. Being Webmaster Tools, like I said before, also a lot of people still actually use Bing to search the web, so don't count them out. Definitely sign up with them too. It's really simple to sign up for an account. These things are free. These aren't something that you have to pay for. They do have like advanced tools. I know Google Search Console has like the keyword planner. I think that's more of an AdWords tool that you have to pay for. And that is a tool that lets you basically do keyword research. I've also included this link here, keywordtools.io. And again, there's tons of these. Oops, didn't mean to click it. But yeah, here it is. So for example, if you want to do some research on keywords, so let's see, something on shipping containers. So, and what keyword research basically is, again, is you're trying to find out what keywords people are using to search on the web. So let's hit go and let's see what this brings us back. So again, you can see for here that, like I said, there's tons of options out here where if you want to find out more information, you can sign up for them. But they do give you some nice little insights here just to know, like, wow, people are searching for this. So for example, if you're like, okay, I'm blogging about this or whatever, these can give you some really solid topics that that people are searching for. So again, over here in this blurred out information, and there's tons of these that you can buy. I'm not trying to plug this one or anything, but if you buy it, and there may be a free version of this metric somewhere too, is that basically it will tell you like how much competition that it is for those words, because sometimes a keyword is really good, but the competition for it is so high that it's just going to be more difficult to come up. Or if you're buying ads for your site, which isn't really SEO, but this is kind of pertaining to that, then that will let you know like how much you're going to actually be paying per impression or per click by looking at something like this. You could also sign up for like an AdWords account or something like that and just see how much it's charging you per click. Let's see, what's there another one I want to show? Yeah, so if you don't want to use that, another good thing to do is just to go to, let's see, go to Google and just start typing in something, and then you'll see like suggestions come up here. This is basically the same information that something like this is getting, except it's just doing it a lot more, and it's going to give you some more extra insight if you want. So let's see, come back. So yeah, sitemaps. So a sitemap is essentially XML file. Again, technical stuff, you don't need to really worry about what an XML file is too much. But what a sitemap does is it's literally just a map of all the links on your site. So again, these are just steps that make it really easy for the robot to to index and categorize your site. So once the robot's found your site, it's like, okay, I'm here. Where should I look? And then the XML map, XML sitemap is what you want to do. So it's really easy here to come to a site like this and generate one. All you got to do is type in whatever URL and tell it like how much the content changes, and hit start. And you get an XML file that you just upload to your site. It's pretty simple. And then there are probably like WordPress plugins. I'm sure there are WordPress plugins that handle this as well. So last but definitely not least is Google Analytics, because this is really gonna, tell you whether it's working or not. The Google Search Console, Bing Webmaster Tools are more of information on like how well your site is being crawled by the robot specifically, just by the robot. But Google Analytics shows you real traffic of how people are interacting with your site. So won't go into too much detail about that, but in Google Analytics, it shows you the source of where your traffic comes from. So the three of the main sources of traffic are direct traffic, which in most cases means someone just went to the address bar, typed in the URL directly, or it means that Google Analytics, for whatever reason, couldn't tell where it came from. The other type of traffic is social media traffic. Obviously, we know what that is. We talked about that. And then there is search engine traffic. So when you've got your Google Analytics account set up, you can specifically go in there and watch your metrics for each specific channel. So you can say, okay, that thing that I did, it actually helped my SEO, or it hurt it. So definitely something that you're gonna want to use. Now, as with everything I've said here, there are other alternatives. There are other free alternatives to Google Analytics. There are other paid ones that are actually better. It's not, the end all be all, but it's what most people are familiar with, and there's tons of documentation out there about it. So really quickly, we'll go through the checklist of SEO. So number one, you got to have your semantic HTML, which means that you got to have your title tags, H1, H2. Those are the heading tags we talked about. The meta description tags, again, that's the description that shows up under the search result. HTML5 tags. In this last iteration of HTML, they added a few more specific tags, like, for example, there's an article tag that lets someone know that this is the main content of the site, and there's an aside tag that's used for the sidebar to let the robot know that this is actually the sidebar of the site and not just a box that's positioned on one way or other on the site. Is more specific. So again, like I said, if you're using a good WordPress WordPress theme, or if you have a good web developer, this is something that you're going to want to ask about, but you don't really need to do anything there. And I wouldn't worry about doing that stuff if you're not really HTML savvy, because like I said, most plugins that you have are just going to have where you can just drop the information right into a box, the same way you would like update your profile on Facebook, something really easy. Again, mobile responsiveness, it's got to be mobile responsive, because that's where all the traffic is coming from. Or most of it now on the web is actually coming from mobile devices. And let me throw in a little bit tidbit about that. If you're designing your site, I wouldn't spend too much effort into trying to make it responsive for tablets, because people just honestly don't use tablets that much. So, if you got it for like desktop, web, and then mobile, and then something for tablets in there, you're going to be pretty much good to go. Again, long tail keywords. Remember, don't go too short and don't go too spacey out there, because no one's already searching for that. Again, with keywords, you're going to want to, again, these are examples of long tail keywords. Shipping containers for moving. It's really specific, and it's something that people are searching for. Blog, we didn't really talk about this. I kind of assumed when I first started writing this that I'm talking from the standpoint of a blog. However, you might have a static site, and the thing is, it's the same thing. Just say, for example, if you're an artist and you're not, it's not a blog or anything, you just like have works of art that you post up. Well, it's still a good idea to have a blog, because sometimes blogs have content that is maybe a little bit different from your main day-to-day content, but it can still pull people in for something. So again, going back to the bricklaying example, if you had a blog post on um, like how to do some gardening or something, and just say if your website is about overall home improvement or something like that, then you may attract people in for the gardening thing, and they get to your blog and then they see there are other home improvement things. They're like, wow, okay, cool. So that's search engine traffic that ended up turning into something. So that's why you definitely want to consider having a blog, because it can definitely expand your outreach. Also, like we said before, guest posting on other people's blogs to get those backlinks, which is number 5. Definitely don't forget the backlinks. If you got friends who have websites, obviously everyone can't get a backlink from Google or Twitter or Facebook, but wherever you can get them from helps. So like I said, if you've got colleagues, friends, or someone who you can work something out with, you can exchange links on your page or something like that, then definitely take advantage. Definitely. Really quick, we didn't really go into too much detail, but try to keep your page load times as short as possible. Sometimes, like on WordPress, that is just a matter of not using too many plugins or something like that, just because, again, people get really frustrated, and when they leave your site really quickly, it kind of hurts it in terms of its ranking. So you want to make sure you can keep your load times as slow as possible, but don't stress too much over that. Again, sitemap, we talked about that. Gotta let the robot know where it needs to go. So it's great to have a sitemap. It's not like an absolute necessity if you don't have it, but again, we want to optimize. So we want to do everything that we can possibly do to help our site bump up in the search engines. You got your analytics account, and last but not least, I will talk about this SEO plugin from Yoast if you're on WordPress. Because most of the stuff that I talked about so far as all the title, H1s, 5s, let's see what else, even putting certain keywords in your post. There's something else I'm missing. But essentially what this is if you're using WordPress, it categorizes all these boxes. It lays out all these boxes on your page and tells you, like, okay, here's where you put your meta description in this box, or here's how you can improve the meta description. Try to put more keywords in there. And again, there are other SEO plugins out there for WordPress, but I've used the Yoast plugin, and it's pretty good. So definitely do that. So really quick, I'm talk about the future of the web. And like we said before, Google is I can't really say how it works. No one can unless you work there. Even then, they probably can tweak that algorithm that they use, which is just all the sets of formulas or whatever that they use to rank this stuff. So it's kind of a living, breathing thing that's changing all the time. The same search results that you get for a certain term now aren't the same thing that you would have gotten like last year. Things really do change. But what I want to talk about here briefly is that they're actually working on an artificial intelligence search bot, which is going to be really interesting to see how that does. And apparently they're kind of already using it on some search things. So we'll kind of see that change in the future. And lastly, Google AMP / structured data. Really quick, Google AMP stands for Google Amplified Mobile Pages. It's kind of a new thing that Google is rolling out, and you may have noticed it before recently if you search for some kind of like news articles or something on the web, and you see those little like carousel kind of boxes at the top of the search that you can swipe through very easily. Those are just a very, very stripped down version of HTML that Google has kind of produced, essentially just to reduce the load time of websites for the mobile web. Because like we said before, it's very frustrating to get to a website that has a lot of code on it and stuff going on. And, I know for me, one of my personal pet peeves is like stuff is loading on the page as I'm clicking something and the page is jumping around. I click on the wrong thing. So anyway, AMP is just a way to structure your data so that it's very, very lightweight and very, very easy for the robot to read. But It's not really. That's something more to kind of like enhance the SEO that you already have, but I wouldn't like look into AMP unless you have everything else kind of done on this list, because it's kind of it's a lot of steps, kind of like this is, but essentially you're just going to have to like write a different type of HTML. But again, they probably got WordPress plugins for that as well. So I think those are the main talking points. So I'm going to come over here and see if anybody has any questions. Let's see. Okay, so any questions about SEO? Anything I talked about that didn't make sense or that I need to clarify? Or just any other random questions? Let's see. Let's see if I missed anything. Okay, so yeah, there is one more thing that I want to say. So I would say the $1 million question here is, how do you bump someone's site down and get yours into the place of it? So, like I said before, you don't necessarily have to do that, because sometimes people are searching for something that isn't, the need is not fulfilled for that thing yet. There are a lot of people who are typing in searches that that just don't return what they're looking for, and your thing might be the exact thing that they're looking for. So again, try to pick the keywords. Again, do your keyword research, know what the competition is, and look at that. Channing, you got a question? Yeah.
Me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now.
I do. I'm sorry. I joined the meeting a little bit late.
Oh, sure.
But I was just wondering if you went over Nofollow links.
Yes, we did. So essentially, the Nofollow links, I kind of briefly touched on that, is that, again, when you're talking about getting backlinks, it would be great to get backlinks from those sites that are considered domain authorities, and those are the ones that are ranking like 99 to 100% on the scale of does it come up first when you type in. But the thing with some sites, like the social media sites that we talked about, they're like flooding the internet with links, and it really wouldn't have the same effect if you were trying to use those as backlinks, because they put these attributes on the link called nofollow, and that basically is just like a sign that tells the robot like stop, don't go any further, and don't come here. So Google's bot, which is the one that most of us are concerned with, and Bing's too, are going to get to that and say like, okay, that's the end. So it just will never follow that link in the first place. However, it's still a great idea to post on social media, and that's like in your profiles. If you're posting links, like sharing links, because that can still increase the traffic to your site, which does help boost your page ranking. So it kind of like inadvertently does kind of affect your search engine, but it's not a direct effect, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, it did. I use Squarespace.
Okay.
So I received a code that I use in the markup section of that of each post, and I actually inject a certain code when I'm linking out to other sites that aren't my own.
Okay.
To increase my SEO, that's what I was told. But
okay, so you're saying you put the code in your site when you share other people's content?
When I share other people's content, yes.
Okay. So depending on like what's linking to what, and that's that attribute that it says like rel, REL equals nofollow, and if it has in there, yeah, that is basically whatever link that's on is telling the search bot. And were you here when I was talking about the search bot?
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I'll just, it's cool. I'll just kind of briefly go over that. So essentially, when you go and you type something onto the web to search it, what is not happening is that you're not typing in like a database query where it's going back and searching through the internet and finding based on what you're looking for. What has happened and what's actually happening right now is Google has a robot that just lives inside the internet, and it's just constantly clicking from web page to web page and categorizing everything, and categorizing those web pages relevancy to certain sets of keywords. So all that really means is that once you search for something, the robot kind of already has like I was talking about earlier, like you search shipping containers, it already has like a set list of pages for all those different search terms. So it's literally just like a person that's on a computer that's just clicking link to link to link to link. It goes to one website, it clicks all the links in your site that you can find, and hopefully it'll find a link to some other website, which is why the backlinks count so much. Because if the robot is crawling around on Facebook, for example, and it said, oh, cool, look, a link, let me follow this. And then it's going to say like, okay, well, this site got a link from Facebook. So Facebook had to have put that link there. Because you can, you can put a link there, but, and let me get back to that in a second, it's not going to do anything because of that nofollow link. So what happens is when you have the nofollow on there, that's when the robot gets there and it's like, okay, I was told not to click on this link, so it just doesn't. So that part never gets indexed. So putting a nofollow on something is basically just a way of telling the robot not to click that link, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So let's see, any other questions? Anything, even if you think it's weird. Yeah, that was a good question. So, I guess that's it. If nobody else has any questions. Okay, but yeah, there's one more thing I want to say. So, like I said before, you don't have to necessarily bump somebody's site down to get your content up. However, sometimes you have to, and in that case, it's essentially a game of just doing all that stuff better than they do it. So you're going to have better content with more relevant keywords. You're going to have to have more backlinks than they have, or at least a lot of them. Again, I can't say like how much or what percentage. Like again, nobody knows. I don't even know if the developers actually know what it's going to do if it's AI. But essentially you're just going to have to like outperform them on the information on the website. It doesn't necessarily mean that the pictures need to be prettier or that the layout needs to be better or that got to have these like cool plugins going on, but it's literally the content of the page. So if you want to beat someone out in their ranking, you've got to beat out how relevant their content is for those specific set of keywords. So again, like we did before, coming to this site, what is this, architectureanddesign.net. If you want to beat this page out, then you've got to do a better version of this page so that when someone comes and they search houses made from shipping containers, the robot has already visited your site and said, yeah, it's a little bit more relevant than this one is, so it would be here. So that's not an easy task, but like we talked about before, there are all these different techniques that you can do to make sure that happens. So now you know about SEO, hopefully a little bit more than you knew before. And I don't think I was sharing my screen at the last little point, but cool. So any other questions? All right, cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming to this webinar. And again, I hope you got some useful information that you can use. And if you've got any questions, just feel free to let us know. Thank you. Cool. All right. Well, everybody have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you next time.